A little girl hugs a millionaire by mistake, but when she says one word, he drops his phone. The wind stung her face. Her coat was too big, and the man in the expensive suit was lost on a call. She simply ran up and hugged his legs. Her grandma used to say, "If someone looks sad, hug them." But that day she whispered, "You're home." And the millionaire dropped his phone, as if he had seen a ghost. The October wind scattered golden leaves across Bryant Park as Blake Westmore strode through the crowd, phone pressed to his ear. At 44, the CEO of Westmore Technologies commanded attention with every step, his tailored suit and steel gaze announcing his status before he could speak. "The Singapore deal closes tomorrow," he barked into his phone. "I don't care what their CFO says. Tell them I need signatures by noon Eastern or—" A small figure darted through the crowd. Before Blake could sidestep, tiny arms wrapped around his knees, gripping tightly. "You're home," a little girl's voice whispered against his leg. Blake froze. The phone slipped from his fingers, clattering against the concrete. The world around him blurred. The child, no more than 6, with dark curls and amber eyes, gazed up at him with an innocent smile that sliced through 12 years of carefully constructed armor. That voice, those words, the same ones Hope had whispered every evening when he'd walk through their front door. Hope, his daughter, 5 years old when she died. "I'm sorry, mister," the girl said, her smile fading as she noticed his stricken expression. "I thought you were someone else." Blake couldn't speak, couldn't move. Around him, people slowed, phones raised. A few recognized him, the Ice King of Wall Street, rendered speechless by a child's embrace. The girl backed away, frightened by his reaction, then turned and ran toward an elderly woman waiting on a bench. Blake watched her go, still paralyzed, as the woman took the child's hand and hurried away. "Sir? Mr. Westmore?" His assistant's voice came from the phone on the ground. "Are you there? Hello?" Blake retrieved his phone mechanically, muttered something about calling back, and ended the call. He tried to resume walking, to reset his day, but his legs moved wrong, as if they belonged to someone else. That night, in his penthouse overlooking Central Park, Blake stood in the dark hallway before a door he hadn't opened in 12 years. His hand hovered over the knob, trembling. He turned away, as he had every night since the accident, and retreated to his study. Opening his laptop, he searched social media for any footage from the park. There it was, already gathering views. Billionaire CEO breaks down after child's hug. He paused the video on the girl's face, studying her features in the blue light of his screen. "Who are you?" he whispered. For the first time since Hope's funeral, Blake Westmore wept alone in the darkness, the wall he'd built around his heart cracking like thin ice in spring. Outside his window, New York City glittered indifferently. But inside, something long frozen had begun to thaw, and with it came a pain he'd spent 12 years trying to forget. "You're home!" Hope's voice echoed in Blake's dreams that night, pulling him back to their old colonial house in Connecticut, sunlight streaming through French doors, his 5-year-old daughter racing across the lawn, pigtails bouncing, arms outstretched. He woke, gasping, sheets twisted around him. The memories came in relentless waves now. Memories he'd spent a fortune trying to suppress through work, success, and calculated emptiness. Blake pulled himself from bed, moving like a man underwater to his home office. The bottom drawer of his desk remained locked, another boundary he maintained. Tonight, he found the key hidden inside an old watch case. Inside were the only photographs of Hope he hadn't destroyed. Her birth announcement, a picture from her 4th birthday, and one from their last vacation at the beach. Her smile was the same one that had ambushed him in the park. The accident had been ordinary, as most tragedies are, a rainy April evening. Hope, excited about showing him a drawing, running down the stairs. The babysitter just steps behind, calling for her to slow down. His phone ringing with her panicked call as Hope lay unconscious after her fall. He'd been in Chicago, closing the deal that would make Westmore Technologies a billion-dollar company. Her call went to voicemail 3 times before he checked. By the time his private jet touched down, Hope was already in surgery. She awakened briefly in the hospital, saw him and whispered, "You're home. Now don't leave again." Then she was gone. Julia, his wife, hadn't spoken to him for weeks after. Then she'd packed her things, filed for divorce, and left him alone in their too large house with a room he couldn't enter and a ghost he couldn't face. Blake never returned to that house. He sold it, moved to Manhattan, and built an empire fueled by his refusal to feel anything again. His reputation for ruthlessness wasn't an exaggeration. It was a survival strategy. Now, 12 years of careful emotional distance had been shattered by a child in a park and 2 simple words. Blake closed the drawer, made coffee, and stood at his window as dawn broke over the city. By 7 a.m., he was showered, dressed, and calling his head of security. "David, I need information on someone," he said. A child, African-American girl about 6 years old, was at Bryant Park yesterday afternoon with an elderly caretaker, possibly her grandmother. Find out who she is, where she lives. "Sir, that's not exactly legal without—" "I'm not asking for legal advice," Blake cut in, his voice hardening. "Just find her." "May I ask why, sir?" Blake stared at the city below, considering his answer. "I'm not sure," he admitted finally, surprising himself with the honesty, "but I need to know." 3 hours later, a file appeared in his encrypted email. The girl's name was Lily Thompson. She lived in Yonkers with her grandmother, Clarice Thompson. Her mother had died in childbirth. She attended East Side Elementary School, a deteriorating public school in one of the poorest districts. Blake read the file twice, committing details to memory. Then he closed his laptop and cancelled all appointments for the day. "Tell them I'm ill," he told his assistant. For the first time in 12 years, it wouldn't be a lie. East Side Elementary School had seen better days. Paint peeled from cinder block walls. Water stains marked ceiling tiles, and the playground equipment looked like it had survived several presidents. Blake parked his leased Honda, a deliberate choice to avoid attention, and straightened his fake glasses. At the front office, he cleared his throat. "I'm Walter Jenkins. Here about the Reading Volunteer Program." The harried secretary barely glanced up. "Sign here. Room 108. Room 108 hummed with the organized chaos only a first-grade classroom can produce. Ms. Perez, a young teacher with tired eyes and a determined smile, welcomed Mr. Jenkins with visible relief. "The children take turns reading with volunteers," she explained. "You'll be at the blue table." Blake nodded, scanning the room until he spotted her, Lily Thompson, at a small desk, hunched over a drawing. Her tongue poked slightly between her teeth in concentration. "Kids, this is Mr. Jenkins," Ms. Perez announced. "He'll be helping with reading today." 20 small faces turned toward him. Lily's gaze lingered briefly, a flicker of recognition quickly replaced by shyness. During reading time, Blake helped 4 children before Lily took her turn. She brought a well-worn copy of The Giving Tree. "Do you like reading?" Blake asked gently. She nodded. "My mom used to read to me. Grandma says she's reading in heaven now." Blake's throat tightened. "I'm sorry about your mom." Lily shrugged with the strange acceptance children have for tragedy. "Grandma says she gave me life as her special gift." After reading, the children returned to art. Blake pretended to organize books while watching Lily draw. "What are you making?" Ms. Perez asked, stopping at Lily's desk. "A house," Lily replied, "with a sad man at the door." "Why is he sad?" "He lost something," Lily said, concentrating on her crayon. He looks like the man in that picture Mama tore before she went to heaven. Ms. Perez patted her shoulder and moved on, but Blake stood frozen, a textbook clutched in his hands. As he was leaving, a stooped elderly woman appeared in the hallway. Clarice Thompson's eyes narrowed when she saw Blake, a flash of recognition crossing her weathered face. "Grandma!" Lily called, running to her. Blake nodded politely as he passed, but Clarice gripped his arm with surprising strength. "You smell like broken things," she said quietly, her eyes never leaving his face. Blake pulled away, unsettled. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," she replied, taking Lily's hand. "Come on, baby. Time to go home." Back at Westmore Technologies, Blake moved through his afternoon meetings like a sleepwalker. In a budget review, when his CFO presented projections below target, Blake fired him on the spot. Minutes later, he terminated a senior VP who questioned the decision. That evening, as Blake sat alone in his office, his intercom buzzed. "Sir, Julia Westmore is here to see you." Blake's ex-wife entered before he could respond. 12 years had added dignified lines around her eyes, but otherwise she looked the same. Elegant, composed, and wary. "I saw the video," she said without preamble. "Julia..." "Don't," she raised a hand. "I just needed to see if you were okay." "Are you?" Blake stared at her, this woman who had once known him better than anyone. "A part of me got stuck in that hug," he admitted, "and I don't even know why." Julia's eyes softened. "Maybe that's what you need to find out." 3 days passed before Blake returned to Bryant Park. He sat on a bench, newspaper raised, watching the playground through designer sunglasses. When Lily appeared, hand in hand with her grandmother, his heart quickened. Clarice settled on a bench while Lily played. After several minutes, the older woman closed her eyes, chin drooping toward her chest. Blake made his move. "Hello again," he said, approaching Lily carefully. She looked up from the sandpit, recognition dawning. "You're the sad man from school." Blake smiled despite himself. "Not always sad. But sad a lot," she countered with a child's directness. "Like my grandma when she thinks I'm sleeping." Blake crouched to her level. "Do you come here often?" "Tuesdays and Fridays after school," Lily explained. "Grandma says fresh air makes good dreams." "Wise grandmother." Lily studied him. "Are you a dad?" The question staggered him. "I was." "Where's your kid?" "In heaven, like your mom." Lily nodded solemnly. "Mama said some dads become invisible when they feel too much sad or when they think it's their fault." Blake swallowed hard. "Your mother sounds smart." "She was the smartest," Lily agreed. "Grandma says I have her eyes." Blake glanced at Clarice, still dozing. "Would you like me to walk you back to her?" Lily gathered her toys. "Okay, but she might make her mad face at you." Sure enough, Clarice's eyes snapped open as they approached, immediately narrowing at Blake. "What are you doing with my grandbaby?" she demanded. "We were just talking, Grandma," Lily explained. "I'm sorry if I overstepped," Blake said. "I wanted to introduce myself properly. Blake Westmore." "I know who you are," Clarice replied. "What do you want?" "To offer you a ride home. It's getting chilly." "We take the bus." "Please," Blake persisted. "It would be my pleasure." Clarice studied him, then sighed. "Fine, but you're not coming in." Yet when they reached the small, well-kept trailer in Yonkers, Clarice surprised him after Lily ran inside. "You might as well come in for coffee," she said grudgingly, "since you came all this way." The trailer's interior was spotless and crowded with memories, photographs, handcrafted items, an old upright piano. While Lily changed clothes, Blake noticed a cardboard box labeled M's Things, partially visible under a side table. Clarice followed his gaze. That belonged to Monica, Lily's mother. Blake nodded, accepting the coffee she offered. "Why are you here, Mr. Westmore?" Clarice asked bluntly. "What does a billionaire want with us?" "I'm not entirely sure," he answered honestly. "Something about Lily reminds me of someone." Clarice set down her cup and pulled the box out. After a moment's hesitation, she removed an employee ID badge with a familiar logo, Westmore Estate Staff. "You don't remember me, do you?" she asked. Blake took the badge, staring at the much younger Clarice Thompson, household staff, 2010-2012. "You were Hope's nanny," he whispered. Clarice nodded. "For 2 years. And Monica, Lily's mother, was your housemaid." Blake's coffee cup nearly slipped from his hand. "I don't remember." "You wouldn't," Clarice cut in. "We were invisible to you. Until Monica wasn't." "What do you mean?" Clarice leaned forward. "What I mean, Mr. Westmore, is that you want to know if Lily is yours. That's why you're really here, isn't it?" Blake couldn't answer, the question hanging between them like smoke. Blake's investigation into Monica Green occupied the next week. His assistant delivered a slim file to his penthouse late Friday evening. Monica had been 22 when she worked at the Westmore estate. After her dismissal, she disappeared into New York City's vastness, surfacing briefly at a women's shelter before finding work as a hotel maid. She died giving birth to Lily at New York Presbyterian, complications from preeclampsia. The birth certificate listed no father. Blake studied her employee photo. She'd been pretty, with Lily's same warm brown eyes and determined chin. Monday morning, Blake summoned Evan Porter, his chief operating officer and longest-serving executive. "Tell me about Monica Green," Blake said without preamble. Evan's face drained of color. "Sir, Monica Green, she worked at my house in 2012. Evan studied his hands. "Why are you asking about this now?" "Just answer the question, Evan." "She was a maid. There was an incident. HR handled it." "What kind of incident?" "Sir, this was 12 years ago." Blake slammed his hand on the desk. "What happened?" Evan sighed. "We had a relationship. Briefly. She was let go when it came to light." "And? And what? Did you know she was pregnant when she was fired?" Evan's silence was answer enough. "Did you know she died giving birth? That your daughter has been raised by her grandmother in poverty?" "I didn't. I wasn't sure." "Get out," Blake whispered, his voice deadly quiet. "Get out of my office. Blake, please, you killed 2 people, you just didn't bury them." After Evan left, Blake sat motionless, staring at the Manhattan skyline. His phone rang. Clarice Thompson. "Lily's in the hospital," she said, her voice cracking. "Asthma attack, Memorial Children's Ward." Blake found them in the ER, Lily small and pale on the bed, an oxygen mask covering her face. Clarice looked up, unsurprised to see him. "She asked for you," she said simply. Blake approached cautiously. Lily's eyes fluttered open, brightening when she saw him. "Hi," she whispered through the mask. "Hey, kiddo," Blake replied, taking her small hand. "Rough day?" She nodded. "Scared grandma." "She's tough," Blake assured her, though Clarice's exhaustion was evident. "So are you." Lily drifted off to sleep, her tiny fingers still wrapped around Blake's. He didn't move, keeping watch while Clarice dozed in a chair. A doctor entered to check Lily's vitals. "She'll need to stay overnight," he told Blake, assuming he was family. "Her grandmother can use the cot." "But I'll stay," Blake said. "She won't be alone." Hours later, Clarice stirred. "She looks like her, you know." "Who?" "Hope." Lily saw a picture once in Monica's things, said it looked like her own reflection. Blake felt his chest constrict. Why would Monica have a picture of Hope? "She loved that child," Clarice said. "We all did. That's why what happened after was so cruel." "What are you saying?" Clarice shook her head. "Not tonight. But Lily wasn't drawn to you by accident, Mr. Westmore. Some souls recognize each other across time." As dawn broke, Blake watched Lily's peaceful face, whispering to himself, "She was looking for someone, and she found me." Evan appeared at the hospital the next afternoon, hollow-eyed and clutching a small velvet box. "What are you doing here?" Blake demanded in the hallway. "I had to come," Evan replied. "Once I knew it was Lily." "How did you—" "I've always known, Blake. I just couldn't face it." Blake struggled to control his fury. "You abandoned your own child." "Yes." Evan didn't defend himself. "After Monica told me she was pregnant, I panicked. My career was just taking off. I told HR she was inappropriate with me. They fired her immediately." "You destroyed her life." "I know." Evan opened the velvet box, revealing a silver pendant. "I gave this to Monica the night before everything fell apart. It's the only thing I have left of her." Clarice emerged from Lily's room, freezing when she saw Evan. "Mrs. Thompson," Evan began, his voice breaking. "Save it," she interrupted. 12 years too late." "I want to help," Evan insisted. "I'm her father." "Biology doesn't make you a father," Clarice replied coldly. "Monica never wanted Lily to know who you were, said it would hurt her more than help her." She turned to Blake. "Lily's asking for you." Inside, Lily sat up in bed, color returning to her cheeks. "They say I can go home tomorrow," she announced. "That's great news," Blake replied, taking his now familiar seat beside her. "Will you still visit us?" "If that's okay with you and your grandmother." Lily nodded. "Grandma pretends to be grumpy, but she likes you, I can tell." After Lily was discharged, Blake drove them home, then returned to his penthouse. For the first time since the accident, he unlocked Hope's bedroom door. Everything remained exactly as it had been. The canopy bed with princess sheets, stuffed animals arranged on pillows, toys waiting for a child who would never return. On the nightstand sat the broken flashlight from the night of the accident, the one Hope had been carrying to find him in the dark. Blake picked it up, his hands trembling. The weight of it, of everything he'd lost, everything he'd never allowed himself to grieve, crashed over him. His phone rang. "Julia." "I just thought you should know," she said. "I've been getting calls from reporters asking about you and some little girl." "It's not what they think," Blake explained, then found himself telling her everything about Lily, Clarice, and Evan. When he finished, Julia was quiet. "You know what this is, don't you?" "What?" "Hope. The universe gave you another chance to be there for a child who needs you. You were the man who needed to hear those words in the park, and somehow she found you." 2 days later, Blake returned to Eastside Elementary, this time without disguise. He rolled up his sleeves and joined parent volunteers painting the dilapidated hallways. The principal approached, surprised. "Mr. Westmore, this is unexpected." "Just trying to help," he said simply. By day's end, his custom suit was spotted with paint, but the main hallway gleamed with fresh color. As he was leaving, the principal handed him a visitor badge. "If you're serious about helping, we could use a reading tutor, for real this time." That weekend, Blake visited Lily at home. She showed him her drawings, her books, her mother's music box. "You remind me of someone from my prayers," she said suddenly. "Who's that?" "The angel I asked to find Grandma a helper because she gets tired." Blake felt tears sting his eyes. "If you want, I could be that person now." Lily studied him seriously. "I'd like that, and I think my mom would too." 2 years melted away. The spring sun warmed the courtyard of Eastside Elementary, now transformed with fresh paint, new playground equipment, and a garden where Lily Thompson, now 8, read to younger children twice a week. And then, the caterpillar became a butterfly, she concluded, closing the book as kindergartners applauded. Across the courtyard, Blake watched proudly. At 46, he looked younger than he had 2 years ago. Gone was the perpetual scowl, replaced by laugh lines and a relaxed posture that still commanded respect without intimidation. He'd stepped down as CEO of Westmore Technologies, remaining as chairman of the board, but delegating day-to-day operations. His penthouse had been sold, replaced by a brownstone 10 minutes from Lily's school. Evan had stepped up too, though the path had been rocky. After DNA confirmation and lengthy discussions with Clarice, he'd become a legal guardian to Lily, alongside her grandmother, with Blake as a permanent fixture in their unconventional family. "You've created something special here," said the district superintendent, touring the school's renovations. "The kids did the real work," Blake replied. Later that evening, Julia joined Blake, Lily, Evan, and Clarice for dinner, a monthly tradition that had evolved naturally. "I have something for you," Julia told Blake afterward, handing him a weathered envelope. Inside was a crayon drawing Blake had never seen, Hope's last artwork, found in Julia's keepsakes. Across the top, in childish scrawl, "Home is where Daddy sits still." She made this the week before. Julia's voice trailed off. "She wanted you to slow down, be present. I couldn't give it to you then. You weren't ready." Blake's fingers trembled over the faded colors. "Thank you," he whispered. The next day, Blake framed the drawing and hung it in the school library he'd funded. Lily found him there, studying it. "Is that from Hope?" she asked. She knew the story now, all of it. "Yes, her last drawing." Lily tilted her head. "She felt it too, didn't she? Like you weren't really there?" "Yes," Blake admitted. "More than I understood at the time." Lily wrapped her arms around his waist, a familiar gesture now. "I get why you were in the park that day." "Why's that?" "You were waiting for forgiveness, and she sent me to give it to you." Blake hugged her back, marveling at the wisdom in one so young. Perhaps some souls did recognize each other across time, as Clarice had suggested. Across town, in a recently purchased office space, Evan was setting up the Westmore Green Foundation, dedicated to supporting single parents and their children. The plaque outside bore both Monica's and Hope's names, 2 lives lost, now honored through lives being transformed. The changing seasons brought more changes. Blake and Julia reconnected as friends, finding healing in shared memories they'd once been too wounded to revisit. Together they tended Hope's grave, no longer avoiding the grief, but embracing it as part of their story. "You've created a beautiful legacy," Julia told him. "Hope would be proud." Blake smiled. "I think she orchestrated the whole thing." Winter arrived with unexpected brutality. Clarice, whose health had been gradually declining, collapsed while preparing breakfast. Lily found her unconscious on the kitchen floor. "Grandma!" she screamed into her phone. "Grandma won't wake up!" Blake arrived at the hospital minutes after the ambulance. Lily huddled in a waiting room chair, small and terrified. When she saw Blake, she ran to him. "Don't let her go," she sobbed against his chest. "Please." Evan arrived an hour later, disheveled and out of breath. "I was in Boston, the first meeting for the foundation. I came as soon as—" "Where were you?" Lily demanded, her grief turning to anger. "You're supposed to be here, you promised." "Lily, You're just like Mama said. You run away when things get hard." Evan flinched as if she'd struck him. In the painful silence that followed, a doctor appeared. "Mrs. Thompson has suffered a severe stroke," he explained. "She's stabilized, but we won't know the extent of the damage until she regains consciousness." Days blurred together. Blake practically lived at the hospital, running his company remotely while Lily refused to leave her grandmother's side. Evan took over the household duties, his guilt manifesting in frenetic activity. On the 4th night, as Lily finally slept in a chair by Clarice's bed, Evan confronted his own failure in the hallway. "She's right," he told Blake. "I've been playing at being a father without doing the work, showing up for school events, but missing middle-of-the-night fevers, taking her to movies, but not doctor appointments." "You're learning," Blake offered. "That's something." "It's not enough," Evan replied. "I keep thinking I can't mess up like you did with Hope, but I'm messing up differently, which is worse because I should know better." Blake had no comfort to offer. The truth hung between them. They were both broken men trying to piece together a family from fragments of regret and second chances. When Clarice finally awoke, her left side was paralyzed, her speech slurred but comprehensible. Her first word was Lily. As Clarice began rehabilitation, a guidance counselor requested a meeting with Blake and Evan. Lily had been nominated for the Smithfield Academic Advancement Program, a prestigious opportunity that would require her to attend boarding school in Massachusetts. "She's gifted," the counselor explained. "This could change her life trajectory." When they presented the opportunity to Lily, she shook her head vehemently. "I can't leave Grandma," she insisted. "Or you," she added, looking at Blake. "Your mother would have wanted this for you," Blake said gently. "This is the chance she never had." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "If I go, will you stay here with Grandma, with everything we built?" "Until you return," Blake promised, "no matter how long it takes." That night, Clarice asked to speak with Blake alone. "She didn't choose you by mistake that day in the park," she said, her words slow but deliberate. "What do you mean?" "Monica kept a journal. She wrote that if anything happened to her, she wanted Lily to find you, not Evan. She believed you'd protect Lily because you couldn't protect Hope." Blake sat back, stunned. "She knew about Hope?" Clarice nodded weakly. "Everyone downstairs knew everything about upstairs. Monica saw how you grieved, how you changed. She believed there was still good in you buried under all that pain. She trusted me after what happened to her. She blamed Evan, not you, said you were both broken in ways only children can fix." Clarice reached for his hand. "Promise me if I don't recover, you'll be there for her, even when Evan fails, especially then." "I promise," Blake whispered, finally understanding the weight of those two words from the park. "You're home." They were never just about him coming back to a physical place. They were about returning to himself, to the man he was supposed to be. Summer heat shimmered over the Massachusetts countryside as Blake's car wound up the tree-lined drive to Smithfield Academy. Beside him, Lily stared wide-eyed at the brick buildings and manicured lawns. "It looks like Hogwarts," she whispered. Blake smiled. "Minus the moving staircases, hopefully." They'd prepared for this moment for months. Clarice had improved enough to return home with daily nurse visits. Evan had taken a leave of absence to help with her care, his first genuine commitment to the family. As they carried Lily's bags to her dormitory, she suddenly stopped. "Why didn't you ever ask me?" she said. "Ask you what?" "If I knew who you were, the day in the park." Blake set down her suitcase. "Because I was afraid of the answer. That I might have planned it. That it might not have been the miracle I needed it to be." Lily considered this. "Mama had your picture from a newspaper. She kept it in a special box. She told me if I ever needed help and she wasn't there, to find the sad man with kind eyes." Blake felt his world shift. All this time, he'd believed their connection was cosmic chance, or hope orchestrating from beyond. The truth was both simpler and more profound, a dying mother's final act of faith in a man she'd barely known. "Were you disappointed?" Lily asked. "When you found out I wasn't yours?" "Lily," Blake crouched to her level, though she was taller now at 10. "The moment you hugged me in that park, you became mine in every way that matters." After settling her into the dormitory and meeting her roommate, Blake found it nearly impossible to leave. In the parking lot, Lily hugged him fiercely. "I'll call every day," she promised, "and I'll answer every time," he replied. Driving away, Blake felt an ache that was now familiar. The bittersweet pain of loving someone enough to let them go. Back in New York, he visited Monica's grave for the first time, placing white roses against the simple marker. "Thank you," he whispered, "for trusting me with her." At the cemetery gate, he found Evan waiting. "I thought I might find you here," Evan said. They walked together to where Evan's car was parked beside a memorial bench. "I wasn't a father," Evan admitted, "but you were, even without knowing." Something shifted between them, not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. That night, Blake began writing in a leather-bound journal, not for publication, but for Lily. He chronicled everything: Hope's life and death, his years of frozen grief, the moment in the park, and how one little girl had saved him from the prison he'd built around his heart. The following spring, Eastside Elementary held a dedication ceremony for their new community center. Clarice, now using a walker but determined to attend, was honored with a plaque commemorating her 50 years of service to children, first as a nanny, then as a grandmother, and finally as the inspiration for a foundation that had transformed their community. As the plaque was unveiled, every eye turned to Blake, standing quietly at the back. Engraved beneath Clarice's name were the words, "Some found home in silence." Blake met Clarice's knowing gaze across the crowded room. They had never discussed it, but she understood what he'd only recently discovered. Home wasn't a place. It was the courage to be present in another's pain, to stay when staying was hardest. It was what he'd failed to give Hope, what he'd finally learned to offer Lily, what Monica had somehow known he needed to provide. It was, in the end, the only gift that mattered. 7 years later, Eastside Elementary's auditorium buzzed with excitement. Folding chairs lined the gymnasium floor, filled with families, teachers, and community members. On stage, Lily Thompson, now 17 and graduating as valedictorian, adjusted the microphone. "When I was 6 years old, I hugged a stranger in a park," she began. "That hug changed both our lives." In the front row, Blake Westmore, his hair now threaded with silver, listened with pride. Beside him sat Julia, Evan, and Clarice in her wheelchair, frail but determined to witness this moment. "My mother once told me that home isn't walls and doors," Lily continued. "It's where you're seen completely and loved anyway. For some of us, finding that home means first helping someone else find theirs." She spoke about the community center, the scholarship foundation, the lives transformed, never mentioning that these accomplishments had been funded by the billions Blake had redirected from corporate acquisitions to community investment. "Today I'd like to honor someone special," Lily said, "a mentor who taught me that second chances aren't just about what we receive, but what we give. Mr. Blake Westmore, would you please join me?" Blake hesitated, never comfortable in the spotlight these days. Julia squeezed his hand encouragingly. As he climbed the steps to the stage, memories flashed through his mind. Hope running through sprinklers, Julia's face the day they'd brought Hope home, the accident, the years of emptiness, and then a small hand clasping his leg, 2 words that had shattered his carefully constructed walls. Lily embraced him as he reached her side. Then, standing before the microphone, she said softly, "Just for him. I knew since that first hug." He froze, just as he had that day in the park, but this time a smile spread across his face. The audience applauded, but Blake saw only her, this remarkable young woman who had brought him back to life. Julia wiped away tears, and even Evan, who had finally grown into his role as a father, stood in respect. "I have something for you," Lily said, reaching into her graduation gown pocket. She pulled out a small battered flashlight, the same one that had been in Hope's room, the one she'd been carrying the night of the accident. "The day I found this in that box of your old things, I understood," Lily continued, her voice steady despite the emotion. "Your light went out that night. I just came to help you turn it back on." Blake's hands trembled as he accepted the flashlight. The weight of it, the memories it carried, no longer crushed him. Instead, it felt like a bridge between past and future. "Try it," Lily urged. Blake clicked the switch. After 12 years of darkness, the light blazed bright. A collective gasp rippled through the audience, followed by applause that built into a standing ovation. But neither Blake nor Lily moved, suspended in their shared understanding. Then, with deliberate steps, Blake walked to the edge of the stage where a mural had been painted, a community project led by Lily's art class. At its center, in flowing script surrounded by butterflies, were the words that had changed everything. "Your home." Blake touched the wall gently, then turned back to Lily, with tears streaming unashamedly down his face. "You know, all this time," he said as she joined him, "I thought those words were about me finding my way back. But they weren't, were they?" Lily shook her head. "They were about you helping others find theirs. That's what my mom saw in you, what she knew you could become, if someone just reminded you who you really were." As the ceremony concluded, Blake stood surrounded by the family he'd never expected. Julia, whose friendship had been reclaimed from the ashes of their marriage. Evan, who had finally learned that redemption required action, not just remorse. Clarice, whose wisdom had guided them all, and Lily, the miracle who had appeared exactly when he needed her most. "What's next for you?" a reporter asked Lily as cameras flashed. She looked at Blake, their shared journey reflected in her smile. "I'm going to medical school," she answered. "I want to specialize in pediatric trauma care." "Because of your grandmother's stroke?" the reporter pressed. "No," Lily replied. "Because sometimes the deepest wounds aren't the ones you can see, and sometimes all people need is someone who isn't afraid to walk with them through their darkest moments." Later that night, at the small celebration at Blake's brownstone, Lily found him alone on the porch, still holding the flashlight. "Do you think Hope would have liked me?" she asked. Blake put his arm around her shoulders. "She would have loved you. In fact, sometimes I think she sent you." "Maybe she did," Lily mused. "Or maybe we just needed each other." Above them, stars punctured the velvet darkness of a New York night, distant but steadfast, like the love that had guided them both home. "You know what the best part is?" Lily said, leaning against his shoulder. "What's that? We get to keep going, keep building, keep remembering that home isn't just where we start. It's what we create together." Blake nodded, finally at peace with both his past and his future. The empty space in his heart would always bear Hope's name, but it was no longer an abyss of grief. Instead, it had become the foundation upon which he'd built a life of purpose. "Your home," he whispered, echoing the words that had once broken him and now made him whole. And for the first time, he truly believed it. Sometimes, the most powerful transformations begin in silence, in a misunderstood gesture, a word whispered by mistake, or a moment that feels like coincidence but carries the weight of destiny. Blake spent years building walls made of success and silence, only to be undone by the arms of a child who saw through it all. This story reminds us that healing doesn't always come through grand gestures, but often through presence, honesty, and a willingness to begin again. In the end, it wasn't about who Lily was to him, but what she reawakened in him. A second chance at feeling, at belonging. What if the hug you once dismissed was the one that could have changed everything? And tell us, what did this story mean to you? If you're not yet subscribed, now is the perfect time to click subscribe and activate the notification bell so you never miss a story. Give this video a like if it touched you and leave a comment with your country or city. It helps us create stories that speak to your world. And don't forget to watch the next video by clicking the final card on screen. We chose it especially for you. Thank you for being here.